I thought I knew what heartbreak felt like. I was wrong. His name was Marcus, and for 3 years I believed we were building something real together. I believed in us so deeply that I ignored every red flag, every inconsistency, every moment when his phone would buzz and he'd smile in a way he never smiled at me. What I'm about to tell you isn't just my story. It's the story of how love can make you blind, how denial can become your closest companion, and how sometimes the person you trust most is the one destroying you from the inside out. I need to tell you this because maybe, just maybe, it'll save someone else from making the same mistakes I did. It started innocently enough. Marcus and I met at a coffee shop downtown, I know. He was reading a book on psychology and I was grading papers for my third grade class. He had this way of making me feel like I was the only person in the room when we talked. For the first few months, I floated through life like I was living in a romantic movie. That what love does to you? It turns you into a detective and a defense attorney all at once. The same night he told me he was working late and grabbed something quick from the office cafeteria. I couldn't tell you because of confidentiality. You know how these corporate deals work. You gather evidence, but then you spend twice as much energy explaining why that evidence doesn't mean what it obviously means. He'd tell me he loved me while texting someone else. Every time my gut screamed that something was wrong, I silenced it with logic and hope. He's stressed about work. He's going through a rough patch. Things will get better when his project ends. He'd make plans for our future while secretly building a life with another woman. I was a teacher dealing with parent emails and administrative nonsense at all hours, because admitting he was lying meant admitting that everything I thought we had was a lie. So I believed him. Because when you love someone, you want to believe them. You need to believe them. Our eyes met over my stack of math worksheets, and when he smiled, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. He was everything I thought I wanted. Intelligent, funny, ambitious. While I was planning our future, he was planning theirs. While I was making excuses for his behavior, she was doing the exact same thing. But what I didn't realize then, and what took me 3 years to figure out. Sometimes the most dangerous relationships are the ones that feel the most right at the beginning. In her messages, she was asking him why he worked so late, why he was always busy on weekends, why he seemed distracted sometimes. She was living in the same twisted reality I was, making the same excuses, believing the same lies. Every I love you he'd ever said to me was hollow. Every plan we'd made was built on sand. Every time I'd defended him to my friends who said something seemed off, I was defending someone who didn't exist. Like he was tired of keeping track of all his lies. I was getting ready for work when Marcus's phone, which he'd left charging in the bathroom, started ringing. The same thing cheaters always say when they get caught. As if betrayal becomes acceptable when it's complicated. The name on the screen made my blood freeze. Sarah, the first sign something was wrong, came about 6 months in. Every time I ignored my instincts, every time I accepted an explanation that didn't make sense, every time I chose denial over truth, I was complicit in my own heartbreak. A carefully constructed character designed to keep me hoping while he lived his real life with someone else. But the real work began after he left. I had to confront not just what he had done to me, but what I had allowed to happen. You're addicted to them. You're addicted to the version of yourself that exists in their presence, even if that version is slowly dying. Real love doesn't ask you to make excuses for behavior that makes you uncomfortable. Real love doesn't make you feel crazy for asking reasonable questions. I had to face the uncomfortable truth that I had chosen blindness because sight was too painful. I discovered that my fear of being alone had made me willing to be with someone who was never really there. My need to be chosen had made me willing to be second choice for years. We were at dinner and his phone kept buzzing. Not grateful for the pain, but grateful for what I learned about myself. It was forgiving myself for the time I'd lost, the red flags I'd ignored, the woman I'd betrayed by accepting crumbs when I deserved the whole meal. Someone whose phone doesn't hold secrets? Someone who shows up the way he says he will? I trust my instincts now. I listen to that voice inside me that I silenced for so long. If you're remaking excuses for someone's behavior that you would unaccept from a stranger, please listen to that voice. I love myself enough to walk away from anything that requires me to diminish who I am. Someone who makes me feel chosen every single day, not just when it's convenient for him. Not just once or twice, but constantly. Every few minutes, another notification. Another smile I didn't recognize crossing his face. Work stuff, he'd say, flipping the phone face down. You know how it is. He'd come home exhausted, sometimes with lipstick on his collar that he'd de-explain away as hugs from colleagues, or just grabbed dinner with the team. 3 years of questions, 3 years of gut feelings, 3 years of explained away evidence, all crystallized in that single moment. You're not asking for too much. You're just in love with someone who is incapable of loving you the way you deserve to be loved. I started setting boundaries I'd never had the courage to set. We recognized each other from the photos on his phone. It was about learning to love myself enough to demand better. She had gone through the same process of self-discovery, the same questions about her own judgment, the same journey toward self-forgiveness. Instead of the awkward encounter I'd imagined, we ended up talking for 2 hours over coffee. I started saying no to things that didn't serve me. I started choosing myself in ways I never had before, and I did know how it was. The second sign was subtler. Marcus started having more work events, late meetings, weekend conferences, team-building exercises that lasted until midnight. I became an expert at explaining away the unexplainable. The third sign should have ended everything. I found a receipt in his jacket pocket while I was doing laundry. Dinner for 2 at an expensive restaurant downtown. When I confronted him about it, he looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Baby, that was a client dinner." And I believed him because I wanted to. For 2.5 more years, I lived in this twisted reality, where I was simultaneously the girlfriend he adored and the woman he was systematically betraying. The worst part, I enabled it. I became a master of self-deception because the alternative, facing the truth, felt like it would destroy me. But truth has a way of surfacing even when you're drowning in denial. It was a Tuesday morning in October when everything came crashing down. Not Sarah work, or Sarah client. Just Sarah with a heart emoji. My hands were shaking as I stared at that screen. I didn't answer the phone, but I did something I'd never done before. I looked through his messages. What I found destroyed me and saved me all at once. 2 years, they'd been together for 2 years. While he was telling me he loved me, he was telling her the same thing. The messages weren't just romantic, they were identical to the ones he sent me. The same pet names, the same promises, the same lies. But here's the part that broke me. Sarah thought she was the only one to... We weren't just his victims. We were unknowing accomplices in each other's destruction. I sat on our bathroom floor for an hour, reading message after message, watching our entire relationship crumble in real time. The Marcus I loved was a fiction. When he came out of the shower and saw me with his phone, he didn't even try to deny it. The relief on his face was almost insulting. "How long?" I asked, even though I already knew. "It's complicated," he said. 2 years, I said. "It's been 2 years." He nodded, and I watched 3 years of my life dissolve in that single gesture. But you know what hurt more than the betrayal? The realization that I had betrayed myself. I had loved him so much that I forgot to love myself. The breakup was messy and painful and everything you'd expect. Here, what I learned that I wish someone had told me 3 years earlier: when you love someone more than you love yourself, you don't actually love them at all. Real love doesn't require you to ignore your intuition. I spent months in therapy unraveling the patterns that had led me to accept so little while giving so much. The hardest part of healing wasn't getting over Marcus. But here's what surprised me. Once I stopped making excuses for someone else's behavior, I stopped making excuses for my own. 6 months after everything ended, I ran into Sarah at a bookstore. She had found out about me the same week I found out about her. The crazy thing, she told me, is that I'm grateful it happened. I knew exactly what she meant. Today, I'm in a relationship with someone who doesn't make me question my sanity. But more importantly, I'm in a relationship with myself that's healthy for the first time in my adult life. If you're watching this and something feels familiar, if there's a voice in your head that you've been ignoring, you're not crazy, you're not overreacting. And that's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to do something about it. I loved Marcus. He loved someone else. But the most important love story wasn't about either of them. That's a love story worth fighting for.